Hey, welcome everyone. Please join us up front. We don't want to be lonely up here. Thank you for coming. Okay. Seems very loud, but I will adjust. So are y'all enjoying being in person, taking in the three-dimensional humanity? Yeah. It's surreal, but it's great to see you all actually here. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started today. And I want to welcome you to our conversation about stories of scale, microcredentials, strategies revisited. Today, I get to moderate this conversation. I'm very excited to be. What is she saying?
She wants it closer.
Closer.
Yep. Sounds loud to you, but not to the audience.
Can y'all hear me now?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, the power. Okay. All right, I'll go with this. So welcome to our conversation, Stories of Scale, Microcredential Strategies Revisited. And microcredential and alternative credentials, as you probably know, are a fast-growing segment of emerging digital post-secondary learning landscape. Community colleges are on the front lines of microcredentialing and micropathways, pursuing strategies to stack all forms of alternative credentials into certificate and degree programs. Leaders from two very large community college systems and an education design lab leader working with over 20 colleges in 9 states will share how each is exploring, designing, and creating pathways into college for workers who want to start with an alternative credential to reskill or upskill. So I'm Amber O'Casey. I'm an instructional designer with the Alamo Colleges District in San Antonio, Texas, and I am primarily focused on developing learning experiences that result in marketable skills digital badges. I am honored to be here today to moderate this conversation with leaders in the field. So panelists, will you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Lesley Voigt. I am the Digital Credentials Institute Director at Madison College in Madison, Wisconsin. We have been issuing digital badges since 2012, so we've been in this game for a really long time, and in 2018 we launched our Digital Credentials Institute, which is a department of the college that is both internal facing and external facing. So I'm responsible for everything digital badge inside of Madison College, but I also work with clients externally around the world to help them get their digital badging programs up and going, sustainable, scalable, all of those great things.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Larson, and I'm the head of the Community College Growth Engine Fund with Education Design Lab. And within that, right now we work with 22 colleges in 9 states to think about micropathways that include microcredentials to help them achieve their goal of going into the workplace or continuing their education in ways that are meaningful for them. Prior to that, I was president at Eastern Maine Community College and also worked with microcredentials since 2018, 2019. I'm looking at 2 of my colleagues out here. That we were also quite engaged in identifying what those opportunities are to build microcredentials for the learners, not only within Eastern Maine Community College, but really through a 7-state system. So happy to be here today.
Good morning. I'm Luke Dowden. I'm the Chief Online Learning Officer for the Alamo Colleges District, but for the last year I've been leading our microcredential strategy design team. So I'm happy to be with you. I work with 5 independently accredited community colleges. They're all Hispanic serving. One is also the only college in the United States to also have the designation as historically black college and also a Hispanic serving institution. And so I'm happy to be with you and share what we've learned and learn from you and receive your questions.
All right, thank you. So before we begin, we'd like to get a sense of where you are in your strategy for offering microcredentials. So please raise your hand when you hear the option that best suits the stage that you're in. We're trying to figure out what the heck microcredentials are and or whether or not we want to offer them. Okay, we have some here. Good. You're in the right place. We've identified a few microcredentials who are going to start we are going to start offering in the near future. Anyone with a few? All right. We are currently offering some microcredentials. Okay, more hands are going up. That might have been 50%. Great. We are working on a strategy to embed microcredential options in many of our programs. Okay, still a good number. And then finally, we should be facilitating this session as we have executed a robust suite of microcredential options across many of our degree and non-degree programs. Okay, so you will be our surprise guest panelist.
You're welcome to join us on the
Yes,
stage.
yeah,
We're going to add a chair.
Okay, just giving you a hard time. So it seems like probably a good 50% are offering some microcredentials and trying to decide what to do next. And so that will kind of guide our conversation. Okay, so I'm going to dive into the questions, and really our goal here is just to have an informal conversation and just kind of see where things go and talk about their expertise. So, how are you ensuring a quality learning experience? Luke, would you like to start us?
Sure. I think it starts with the approach of human-centered design. I find myself asking this question a lot in conversations. Amber gets probably tired of hearing me say it to some of our colleagues, but for who are we designing this? Like, who's this for? And I think that's the first piece. Like, you have to really think about the learner. I'll go back to experience we had working with Goodwill Industries. Our colleague, Dr. Aaron Berger's in the room with us that did a lot of work with Goodwill. They had very specific design criteria. And I would say that would be the second. So who's it designed for? And the second important question is, what are the design criteria? And if you're working with employers, they know their employees. And if they don't, and we've been in that situation as well, we'll say, would you survey them and ask them? Because we would really like to accommodate their needs and speak to their unique experiences. So that's one. And I would say talking about the quality perspective from the beginning, again, something that I say very often is, are we collecting data, right? So and for me, that means, are we surveying the learners at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end? You heard a lot about assessment yesterday, and I was excited to hear about that because I'm interested in the the post-test, and I think for quality, you have to have a feedback loop. So I'm really interested in the feedback loop. I'm really interested in what Lesley and Lisa have to say about this one.
Go ahead. So, thank you, Luke. I would agree quite a bit with what Luke has just said, is that we tend to ensure the quality part is to really focus on those new majority learners that Kathleen talked about yesterday at the end of the day, is that when you understand who it is that you're designing for and designing with and bringing them along in that process, you're starting to understand where it is that you need to bring the information, bring the content, bring the process, bring your whole design criteria forward in creating those experiences for those individuals. Also think about who your other critical partners are in those conversations. So your business leaders, your employer partners, the other college leaders at your institution, from your faculties to the key services that those learners are going to need to engage with to ensure that they're successful through those experiences. Whether they're going to be credit or non-credit, really identifying what are those critical design criteria to keep in place as you're creating your framework and building out your models, and then having that assessment in place as well to get that feedback, to do those prototypes, to iterate on that and continue to gain experience from what it is that you're learning through those individuals partaking in this design process. And then I think the last part is really just listening. What is it that you're hearing? What is it that you're seeing? And how are you taking that in to make a difference for the microcredential that you're creating? And how is that aligning to what you have said is the philosophy of your work, or the value of your work, or the mission that you've put in place?
So I have to agree with both of my colleagues here, but I'm going to play the devil's advocate as well. It is always important to design something for the learner, but ultimately we're all in education and we're looking for people to get jobs, right? So Not only are we designing for the learner to have it be something that's useful to them, but it also has to bridge that divide into the workplace. So we need to also include that perspective more upfront maybe than what we have been previously of the jobs. What are the jobs? What is the workforce telling us they want these skills to be? So instead of the traditional, maybe higher ed approach of here's what we're turning out, we now bring those workforce partners, community-based organizations, whoever they might be, into that conversation and say, these are the jobs you're posting and they have these skills repeatedly. You're telling us you want these skills. So why don't we build badges that meet those skills so that when our students come to you, they already have these badges that verify, validate that they have the skills that you're looking for. So yes, we're building for the learner, but we're also creating that bridge that ensures they're getting that learning experience that's going to put them into actual real-time jobs.
And I would just make one more point. The thing that I like about the Community College Growth Engine, and we're not a part of those cohorts, is that one of the guidelines is you have to co-design with an employer.
Yeah.
And we've adopted that for our own work. And that's a lot harder than it sounds to implement. We will probably get into that a little bit later, but to just really amplify what you said, Lesley, because I think it's very important to keep that, hold that as a part of what your expectation is for the end product.
Definitely. Yep.
That leads in nicely to the next question. What strategies are you using to communicate value to all stakeholders, students, faculty, and employers?
So I can start with that one, and that really builds on what Lesley was just talking about and what Luke confirmed, is that through the Education Design Lab, we employ a framework, a tool called the T-Profile, and that really takes into depth a deeper, a broader conversation around what are exactly those skills that employers are looking for, and have a deeper discussion about that. So if you think of a T, across the top are those 21st century skills that so many employers tell us that are critical for your employees to have, whether they're entry level or they're continuing to advance in their career or in their occupation. And we've done a good job of identifying over years of research and on-the-ground work with educators and with employers and learners and assessment providers, and thinking through what are those key skills. And we've identified 9 skills in that area right now, but it's a wonderful opportunity to get at what it is that the employer or the business leader is looking for these series of occupations that you're designing micro-credentials or badges for. And then the bottom of the T, or the other part of the T, are those technical skills. So when an employer brings you those specific occupations and you're having a conversation and developing your credentials, this is such a great opportunity, one, to build that partnership, to get to know how they're designing their job descriptions, to get to know what is the work at hand that they want this person to be able to successfully do, and how does that align to the 21st century skills as well. And the employer then gets a sense of what, as a learning institution, you're doing to create those opportunities for people to achieve that knowledge, to gain those skills and competencies and abilities, and be able to demonstrate them in a very visible way, so that as an employer you understand how they're continuing to grow in their job and help them to advance in their career. But you also then get to see what are the other opportunities out there. What is it that we're not seeing, or where are the gaps, and how they might want to or need to achieve them from both an education point of view and an employer point of view, and how do you put those resources in place to help them to be successful. And that's a tool that, as we've gone through the Community College Growth Engine Fund with our first 9 institutions, that's been such an amazing tool for the colleges have said to bring a different dialogue and a different level of engagement with employers, to have that sense of true understanding what those needs are, and from an employer point of view to say, we didn't always understand how this training or how this education is being created, but being part of this conversation, being part of this work, now they see it and they have an investment in it and they have a deeper level of ownership to it and potentiality to it to ensure those micro pathways and those micro credentials are getting at what the core objectives are for success.
Definitely. I think it could also go one step further than that, in getting all those opportunities to work together, like you said. I think it then comes down to telling the consumer, whoever that consumer might be, what is the value of that opportunity. So building that into your imagery of your badges, building that into what are you calling, and I have more of these up here, a taxonomy that you create, and I know you can't see this, so I understand that. I'll have them, you can take them if you want. We built our own taxonomy. In the US, we have a really fantastic opportunity and maybe not so fantastic opportunity, depending on how you look at it. There is no overarching thing that says a badge must be this. So you have to tell the consumers, what is your badge? What is the value of your badge? It is an educational currency, like a degree, like a certificate. A bachelor's degree is well known. A PhD is well known. These micro-credentials, digital badges, whatever terminology you're utilizing is not maybe well known yet. So you have to tell people over and over and over, what is the value of this thing? And if you have more than one of those things, what is the value of each kind and what are the parameters around that? What does that mean? The taxonomy that we've, knowledge, skill, ability. We're using terms that are already utilized in education and in workforce. We're not trying to come up with something new because there's a lot of new already going on, but whatever you decide to use, however you decide to value your credentials, your badges, make sure that the end consumer sees that in the image. Tell them that. Don't let them guess. Don't make them read 6 lines, 7 lines deep into the metadata. They need to see it right away because they might not open the metadata. They're going to see a lot of these things. So hit them in the face with it. Hit them upside the head, we like to say. Make sure they know the value. You might know it, and you do a great job of it. All of you, we're already doing this work. We're just breaking it down and making it well known by putting it into these badges that can be shared online.
And to your point, we met with a group of students and we started to explain skills and where the job market was going with skills-based hiring. And at the end, I think it was like one of the most brilliant responses. They were like, why should we care? Why should we care? It's your job to tell us. So we're waiting. Give us that response. And we really took that to heart and started to develop lots of information and different ways of presenting it to communicate that with students. We met separately with chambers of commerce and different businesses, healthcare, manufacturing, and IT. And they said to us, we don't care what you call it, but whatever you call it, it's your job to explain it to us. And so I just offer that, those two feedback that we received over the last probably 15 months, I was like, it really to me explains the role we have in what you just said, Lesley, in explaining what it is we're actually talking about, right? Not just coming up with new terms.
Right.
I like micro-credentials, I like micro-pathways, but I also know that if I'm going to talk about it, I have to continually explain it.
Yep. And eventually it will catch on. Like I said, we've been doing this since 2012. Especially our local area businesses, we don't have to tell them anymore. They're coming to us saying, I want this. So it will catch on. The more you talk about it, the more you do this, the more be consistent with what you're doing, it's going to grow organically. That will happen. So you might have to, shift and move as things grow and expand, but just be consistent and keep your message clear.
Yeah, I would agree with that just from what we're learning with some of our cohort 1 colleges, and as they create micro pathways, that language is so powerful.
Yes.
And being consistent with that and having a clear, concise way to describe it and to explain its value to both the learner, as Luke said, and to your critical partners. And not just employers, right? You need to be thinking about that broader set of who else is going to be going out there talking about this on your institutions or your organizations or your industry, your businesses on your behalf. And so how is it that you're providing them with that background to be able to be comfortable with the language? And I think the one-pager or this taxonomy of being clear, concise, and short and to the point is very critical as you consider this work ahead of you.
Great. Okay, the next question. Are badges truly equitable with the new parameters?
I think that's, probably a big reason of why we're all here today as well, is to think about what is the impact of microcredentials, of micropathways and badges, and how are we really truly reaching everyone that we need to be reaching. And I will say, first of all, through my experience with Education Design Lab, that as we do this work, we do it with and for our new majority learners, for those individuals who the traditional higher education wasn't necessarily designed for. That having them have access to not only opportunity but to success is something that we're very critical of and that we continue to look to and learn from and drive from as we want to improve on our work. So areas that we look at that we hold as values when we do this work is that this work is the micropathways or the microcredentials are affordable, that they're relevant and marketable, that they're portable, and more importantly, again, as I'll draw on some of Kathleen's words yesterday, that they're visible, that they have to be visible to the learner and have to answer some of those important questions like, why does this matter, that Luke just mentioned. But what does it mean to me, and how do I own that and take that with me as I move on into my career? They also need to be stackable, leading to something, leading to their next set of skills they're going to earn, or working towards their next career advancement or job that they're looking for. So the idea that they can continue to know that everything that they've done has value and how they're continuing to move forward has value and meaning as they put it together for the choices they're making in their careers. I think the flexibility option is important as an equity measure because we know that there's so many people that have so many responsibilities and things in their life that having that traditional option wasn't necessarily an option for them. And being able to provide the flexibility and whether it's how it's delivered or when it's delivered is also critical as an equity issue as we talk about that with the colleges that we're working with. And I think finally another aspect that we continue to talk a lot about in our work is a learner engagement framework of building growth, agency, and development with our learners and for our learners, that these options have those aspects in mind as we create the framework. And again, they're going to be able to be more successful with that. They're going to be able to think through their own experience and be validated from where they're coming from to know that they're going to be able to get where they want to be in the future.
And I just want to point out two words you used that I think are really critical in this work. Stackable. It can't be a dangling, like a fragment, if for our English majors in the room. And validation. The validation piece for the community I serve is so important because they may have not had a successful educational journey. They may have tried several times. And we saw this summer, we got an unsolicited comment that a student approved the faculty member to share with us. They had worked on a resilience badge inside of one of our courses. A big part of Amber's work are getting faculty members to integrate marketable skills in their credit courses. She's been wildly successful, can talk to you about that offline. I'm just really proud of your work. But the student said, I was in a job interview, and I realized I was interviewing for the wrong job. There were 2 other open jobs, and because I had taken the resilience badge, I realized this wasn't the job for me. That was the job for me. And by the way, I got my offer letter for that job on Friday, and I start on Monday. Talk about agency. That's agency, huge. Right? Yeah. So this isn't aspirational. I just want to say that to you, right? Because we are talking at a high level. Some of this may sound conceptual. There are real people behind the work that are benefiting from the work. And I just think you said two really key words, and I'm a pretty passionate guy, so I apologize. I'm in it for the folks, and I wanted to elevate those two words that you said, Lisa, so thank you.
So I'll pull this to a very practical study that we did. We were trying to answer this exact question. We offer what we call core workforce skills, very similar to 21st century skills, professional skills, soft skills. Everybody's got a name for them. They have been recognized by we survey our local employers. We're on our 7th year of offering these skills. These are the same skills that bubble up every year from our employers. They're offered inside of credit classes. So any credit class can offer them. If you have assessments in communication, if you have speaking opportunities, so anyone anywhere can utilize them and use them within their classes. We pulled fall of 2020, everyone who earned a core workforce skill badge. There are 8 that stack to 2 larger opportunities. Then we cross-reference those with the demographics that are entered by the students into our system. So the demographics that we know: age, race, ethnicity. What we found was that of the almost 800 badges that were earned across the campus, there were 6 individuals who had earned badges but had failed the classes that they were in. So they had taken the assessments, they had passed the assessments needed to earn those badges inside of those credit courses, but for whatever reason had ended up failing that class. What we know now is that 2 of those students have come back because they want to earn more badges. But that's huge. That's huge. That connection wasn't, and we asked them, because we know who they are. They came back. We said, what made you come back? They want to earn more badges. They saw the value in being able to have something to put on their LinkedIn, to put on their resume, to talk about. And the demographic-wise for us at that point was pretty even. We were kind of surprised. We didn't know what we didn't know, right? So it's a study we're going to continue to do. It was a very, very small sampling of the badges that we issue, but it was hugely powerful in what we found in that small study.
Can I just add one more thing to that? Is thinking through, again, our cohort 1 colleges, of what they've done with their micro pathways and with their credentials inside of those, is we've had 2 presidents recently talk about this impact of their learners. And one president said that these are wonderful stackable opportunities, certainly, that employers can put their arms around, they understand what they mean, that they speak a language to them, but also it speaks a language to the learners, because it helps the learners to gain competence that you just talked about, but also confidence. And that's such a key thing to think about, that what does success look like to that learner? And what is it that they're going to gain their agency from to say, I am meant to be here. I am someone that can gain this and do this and be successful and go where I want to go. And I think for all learners, those should be the types of experiences that we're looking for across our spectrum of partnerships that are helping people get where they need to be, to help them stay in their communities and to be able to earn the salary to sustain their family and sustain their communities and be successful. So I think that's a great point you made, Lesley. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Awesome. Okay. What is the right recipe to scale? How do you build and sustain momentum?
So this is something I do every day, working both internally and externally with clients. Is there a 100% right recipe? No, there isn't. Every college is unique, every higher ed is unique, every organization is unique. What it takes is momentum from a group of individuals who want to do the work. So you have to start with that. And then it comes the idea, like I said previously, we're already doing it. We're doing amazing things in our organizations, in our colleges, in our departments, in our programs, but no one knows about it. So take what you're already doing. It doesn't have to be, I'm building a new program and I'm going to add digital badges to it. Look at what you're already doing really well and tell the world about it by adding a digital badge to it. Let your students tell the world about what they did by adding a digital badge or a micro-credential to it. Don't make it hard. Look at where those low-hanging fruit opportunities are. Get a win and then you can start to move on. Getting that win, getting people started talking about it, getting that momentum going, that's how you scale. That's how you get that buy-in. That's how you get people there.
I would say at a very practical level, you need good examples. So invest in good examples and share them and share them and share them. You will be sick of talking about them, but just you have to remember that not everyone's heard the message. Number two, I really liked, Kathleen, what you said yesterday about the connected tissue. Like you named something that I had been bumping up against. And so I don't know how many of you saw Kathleen Delaski's presentation yesterday. If you didn't, go back and rewatch it. There's a piece about the connected tissue that I'm going to go spend some more time thinking about. So I think that's a real key. The other piece is momentum, right? In terms of scale is how do you keep momentum? And I'll be very honest with you, I've struggled with that piece of the work. Especially when you're leading a couple of different large initiatives, or these things take on a life of their own. Anybody have one of those type initiatives where it just kind of sprouts legs and begins to go in a couple of different directions? Thank you. So you understand, and so those were some real practical things that I think you're up against, need to think about or need to do. And the last thing I would say, I've always had success working with a coalition of the willing. I will try to seek out and find a coalition of the willing and learn about them and eventually have them presenting the information, right? Because you need more advocates for the work that you're doing. You can't do it all alone.
I would absolutely agree with my colleagues up here in building scale is that you do want to be really think through what is the framework that you want to try and scale and what have you learned from doing it previously. And you have to, thinking about that, you have to start. You just have to take that first step and start. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing to do because it's unknown territory for organizations or for educators to do that. I want to share just one experience from being at Eastern Maine Community College when we got into this work of doing credentials or badging. We had a few of the following that said, I'm all in, let's do this. And one of our surprise people that we didn't quite know about was the librarian who said, we want to try this, and created a credential or a badge around information literacy. And did it very quietly and didn't make a lot of fuss about it, but put it out there for programs to experience or for other faculty to use. And it gained momentum, as Luke was talking about. And more faculty saw value in what it helped students to be able to do in terms of researching or critical thinking or writing their research papers. And as we took the opportunity, one of the faculty members wanted to celebrate that. And so they, I think Megan was there, she's in the audience here, we took it to the law enforcement group, and they, as those students achieved that badge, they had a badguation. And it was those students that said, what's next? Cool. Where can we continue to be able to earn credentials or badges like this that show and validate me when I'm able to learn and take forward and be able to display in a way that I can't now until I get a transcript, right? That they could post that somewhere. They could share that very visibly and tell a story about what they've been able to do. So I think, again, as you're working towards sustainability, think of those people who, of course, are at the table talking about it, but don't forget people who might quietly be out there doing some things, and bring them along as you find them.
That's a great point.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Great job, Lisa.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay. What is the role of prior learning assessment in your microcredentialing strategy?
So we heard in the keynote yesterday that PLA, or prior learning assessment, is a huge kind of hot topic button right now. This is something that we are actively doing at our college. We have been since 2020. That's a taboo year, but that's when we started. So we have done this in a multitude of ways. We started with, first we had to design a badge for what is a prior learning assessment badge. The state of Wisconsin has a prior learning assessment. It's already defined. You do a project, you do a test, I think there's 4 different things. I can't remember what they all have a fee associated with them, relatively nominal, but huge for some. It's already defined. That's what we have to follow. So we needed a way to kind of, I don't want to say circumvent that system, but maybe run parallel to that system. What we decided was we were going to create what we call articulation badges. Again, what is the value? Define the value, put the value in the badge. So we called them articulation badges. It started with a community-based organization local to us who had students that were coming to us to take classes. We'd worked with them. We'd already defined that they took the class at their organization, CEOs of Tomorrow, and they're okay with me talking about them. I've done presentations with them before. So they take a class called These Teens Mean Business, I believe. We had already worked with them to articulate that back to our field experience course. It's a 3-credit course on our campus. What the badge does is becomes that signal, that key that they turn into our admissions when they enroll at our college and earn that 3 credits without having to pay anything extra, without having to do anything extra other than send the email with that URL of that badge that's securely linked to them. So whether they enroll with us or not, they have this badge that is co-branded, by the way, Madison College and CEOs of Tomorrow. So they can take that out into the world, they can get their job, they can do what they want with it. Should they decide to enroll with us, that badge is their ticket to those 3 credits. It's already prescribed. It's with our admissions office. We have a business process behind all of it. They started with 2 badges. I'm building, in the last 2 weeks, I've built 12 more badges. Prior to that, I think we're up to 10 different organizations that have badges already created that do this art. So it's classes happening off-site. Madison College, my college, it's not our instructors. We don't have anything to do with it. All we do is articulate curriculum they're already using back to curriculum that we're using to verify and validate, crosswalk, to make sure that when they've completed that at whatever organization they're at, they've met where we need them to be to move into the next set of classes, right? Which is what PLA is all about. So it's doing that PLA work up front. An MOU is signed. It's looked at annually, just in case anything changes. But that badge is the thing that gets those students those credits. Our ultimate goal, pie in the sky, is that other colleges will accept those badges for credit. We're starting with our Wisconsin Technical College system, 16 colleges in the state, to see if they'll do it. We would love for that to go nationwide, hint, hint. So we've done that work with our CBOs. We continue to do that work. We are not reaching out to them. They're coming to us. Those first badges were issued to students. They shared them online. Within a week, we had 3 organizations calling us saying, how do I do this? What do we need to do? It's not an automatic yes. Goodwill reached out to us. They do Google. We do Microsoft. We couldn't make it work because they wanted to badge their Google. They could badge their own Google, but we couldn't give them credit for it because we do Microsoft on our campus. So it's not an automatic yes. And sometimes our faculty are like, well, you need to add a final assessment. So sometimes there's some work in between that has to happen. We've now moved that into non-credit to credit. Exact same business process. Exact same. We're not changing the formula. We look at our non-credit curriculum. Our faculty on the credit side looks at and says, okay, these 3 non-credit classes, if they take them all and achieve at whatever level we've set this at, give them this articulation badge, it will be that ticket for them to earn that credit. And the big hold up, non-credit to credit, is the cost, right? That's where everybody's worried about. Generally, they pay more to do it non-credit because it's more flexible. It meets them where they're at. So to do the 3 separate classes, they usually end up actually paying more than had they enrolled in that 3 credit class, but it's more flexible and it works for them.
We're also going down the CE to credit road.
Yeah.
And I think to the extent that you can blur those lines and make it easier for students to cross what's been a wall at many of our institutions, that's noble, righteous work. And with that, I think we're probably ready for some audience questions, right, Kara? I'm seeing you.
I think it would be great to take some.
Yes. We can't hear you.
Can you? Better. To receive the badge, do you set up? To receive the badge, do you set up another course to submit the deliverable and
Okay, so the question was, to receive the badge, do you set up another course for the deliverable and charge for the badge? Okay. We do not. We do not charge the students for badges. And we are on track to issue over 10,000 badges this year. So we don't charge students. We do have an arm of our college, community, business, contract, training, where we can charge the organization a per badge fee. So there is a way to generate some revenue on these. If you want to hear more, we can talk about that later. But we don't charge our students. There is not an upcharge on any of our classes. Potentially at some point that conversation has circled. Right now it's been such a benefit to our students and to the college, and these pathways, these articulated students coming from these organizations into our college, that we're generating more revenue than we ever thought we would. So we don't have to do that. And we don't set up a separate class for deliverables.
Yeah, hi. When you talked earlier, you all talked about the importance of validation. Can you give us a little bit of an example of what that validation process looks like, and does it vary depending on who the badge is for, whether it's, for articulation versus maybe the business?
Yeah, so am I okay to take that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
We were talking about validation in two ways, right? So personal validation that I can learn. And there's a theory on that from a San Antonio professor. Her name's Dr. Laura Rendon. So if you're interested on that side, look at her validation theory. On the other validation for us, we have some guiding principles. One is that it's competency-based, right? So there's sub-competencies or related subsets of skills. And two, that a credentialed faculty, staff, or trainer, that we take them through to help them understand how to assess the same skill. And we worked with a very large employer in San Antonio. We got stuck. We're like, how do we prove that our assessors have mastery and resilience, right, or critical thinking? Said, you're asking the wrong question, Luke. We say, can the same people go and evaluate the same display in our store the same way, regardless if they work in pharmacy, garden, lawn, whatever it is. So I think for us, the validation is about the reliability across assessors. And that's really where we've put our energy. I hope that answers your question.
I think you're exactly right. We do this every day. That's what we do. As faculty members, we are asked to assess our students, right? So I think put the trust in your faculty members, do that kind of cross-sector, here's an assignment, how would you all rate this? That's stuff that we already do. I don't think we need to look at these any differently. We're assessing. That's what we do. And I think we get stuck in this. It's something new. We have to train them how to do this. We really don't. We're already doing it every day. It's just making sure that the thing that they're assessing ends up being the same.
Hi, I'm wondering, do you offer credit for the badges? In other words, when a student earns a badge, do they also earn some credit? And if not, why not?
The only place where we have credit attached to a badge would be an articulation badge. Those are a badge that's earned somewhere within a pathway, non-credit organizations. Those badges have credit attached to them. When we brought badges to our campus, way back when, we made the decision we were not going to compete with transcripts. There is no badge other than something that would live externally to our college in a continuing education space, professional education, business and industry. We will not badge a course, credit course. It's already transcripted. We don't want redundant work. Instead, we look at the course and we say, what skills are being taught inside this course? The students already get their transcripts. They get an A in Healthcare 101. Fantastic, it's transcripted and they got it. But what did they do in Healthcare 101? What did they learn? What kind of abilities came out of that? That's where we've found kind of our secret to success with them is digging into those courses, those credit courses, and pulling out those skills that are kind of hidden inside of there.
I'll visit with you after the panel. I see we've got a couple of other microphones. I want to get to those questions, but we vary a little bit from that, mostly in line, but I want to make sure we get to as many questions as we can. Who's next?
Right here. Okay. Fern.
Hello, my name is Bjarne. I'm from Denmark, and I represent the Danish insurance industry. From the employers' side, we have our own Hello? Okay.
I think we have a faulty microscope. Or
Hello?
microphone.
Okay.
She has.
Right?
Okay. We have our own education institute, and we are very keen to learn about microcredentials. And I learned that it's very important to be stackable when you talk about this. That's a surprise for me, because when we're looking into the future and the labor market, just to be employability, you need to learn new things. It's not a career step upwards, it's to ensure you have a job. So please explain to me why it's so important with the stackability if you want to learn about digitalization, working with robots, sustainability, and so on. So
Sure. I would just say quickly, but Lisa, you've seen this all over the United States. It's both and. So you have to reskill and you have to upskill people. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but Lisa, you've got better examples, I think, than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly echo what Luke has shared, is that in working with the Growth Engine Fund, that what we're finding is that there's a set of credentials or skill sets that employers have validated that have said these are the necessary skills for someone who are coming in as an entry-level employee into this opportunity, into this sector, into this occupation. And then that builds into continuing to gain skills and competencies and credentials to continue to advance in the workplace. And it's really that essence of how do you continue to expand your opportunities in this sector by gaining skills, and that's just stacking on skills that are going to help you get to your goals and continue to get to new occupations and help that company and help yourself. So I think that's that nature of stackability, that what brings you value, what brings that employer value, and how do we put it into a bucket, into a box, into a set of competencies that tell a story, that are descriptive of what one is able to achieve and do and demonstrate.
And I'd love to talk with you later. I worked with Zeeland Business College. I don't think they all have to be stackable. I just don't. If we look at our continuing education space, our professional education, there are a lot of one-off, I need this certification, I need this knowledge, I need this. I think the term stackable can be used in multiple ways. Like you said, you earn this, you earn something else, you're stacking it into your knowledge. And I think that's where the stackability comes. There are definitely some that should be stackable, pathways for students to get from point A to point B. How do I do that? But I don't think they all need to be.
That's a great point.
For the sake of time, I want to get one last question. I believe somebody had the microphone.
Are we good? Are
Are
we
we
at
good?
time? At time.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
We can, I'm happy to stick around if you have questions that you'd like to talk about. Go ahead.
yeah, so we'll stay up here. Please come to your questions, join us with your questions afterwards, and please join me in thanking the panel for a fabulous conversation.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.